From the mid-Atlantic states down into the south, the heat has been turned up. Richmond has not escaped the sweltering heat and humidity, but some of the fans have found a way to cool off. As the fans continue to file in tonight under the lights, the action track will be the site for a good old Saturday night fight, short track style. We welcome you to Richmond International Raceway, and you can tell by the crowd, it is going to be about 60,000 strong for the IndyCar 300, the 9th stop on the 2008 Tour. And the drivers are already in the cars getting ready to go because they've added 50 laps from last year. We're up from 250 to 300 laps. Of course, Scott Dixon had some words about Danica Patrick. More on that in a few moments. Right now, let's quickly get you caught up on all the things that are going to be happening throughout the course of the race in Firestone Race Day. And first man we're going to bring in on our 3-man pit crew, Jackaroo, you're up first.
All right, Marty, we'll consider this fact. We're on an oval. It may be a short oval, but when it comes to oval track domination, you've got to look at only one team. Target Chip Ganassi has been outstanding. They started it out at Homestead, Miami when Scott Dixon won. Dan Wheldon goes on and wins at Kansas. Then the Indy 500. And then, of course, Scott Dixon at Texas. And what about Dan Wheldon 1 week ago? They don't find themselves on the pole tonight. In fact, Scott Dixon, the points leader, is being strapped in row 2. Who's directly behind him? His teammate, last week's winner, Dan Wheldon. Brianne Pedigo?
Jack, it's been a rough season so far for Tony Kanaan and Marco Andretti, with both drivers still looking for their first win. But tonight could be the night that one of them gets it done for Andretti Green Racing. The pair will start first and second, and here at Richmond, where it's really difficult to pass, that's the only place you want to be. But let's not forget, these two have had some heated moments so far this season, and if they want a victory tonight, they'll have to stay out of each other's way. Vince Welch?
Well, Brianne, one of the top stories all weekend has been the speed shown by Buddy Rice in the Dreyer and Reinbold machine. Rice has been among the fastest in each of the practice sessions, and he will start 5th tonight. That's his best starting position since 2005. Why is he so good here? Rice says it's a track where the setup and the driver are everything. He's on the same page with John Dick. The track suits him. Rice believes that he has a car that can contend for the win tonight. He's not the only one with a promising starting position. Graham Rahal took advantage of a changing track condition during qualifying yesterday, and he will start 3rd. 2 drivers starting up near the front. The big question, Marty, will they stay there?
And that's what we'll find out in the course of 300 laps. As we thank you for tuning in for Firestone Race Day. When we come back, it will be time to fire the engines and get this show on the road here at Richmond International Raceway. And at Richmond International Raceway, a great crowd has turned out for tonight's Under the Lights 9th race of the 2008 season. 26 cars. We had 18 here last year. There is going to be a lot of action on the action track tonight. You already know Tony Kanaan, Marco Andretti on the front row, Graham Rahal, Scott Dixon in row number 2. Let's get this show on the road.
Words in motorsports. Please welcome back Max Angelelli and Wayne Taylor as they give the command.
Go. Ladies and gentlemen, start your engines.
Concentration in the eyes of the drivers as the engines come to life here at Richmond International Raceway. If you've been a fan of the series, you know that after last week's race in Iowa, the man in that cockpit right there, Scott Dixon, had some words that were not too complimentary about Danica Patrick. Here's his quote from the Des Moines Register. She's a menace. It might just be me, but it's tough when you get drivers that don't stay where they should be. For more on this story, let's bring in Vince Welch.
Well, Marty, since Scott Dixon made that comment, you better believe Danica Patrick has been dogged by reporters seeking a response, especially here at the racetrack in Richmond this weekend. Through it all, Danica's response has remained consistent.
At a place like, let's say, Iowa, where these comments came up, it was very difficult to pass in general. I mean, I could barely get close to a car. I was unable to really get that far up there to start to pass people when we were under green. So it's a difficult place to pass anyway. So it's not my job to make it easy for them. It is my job to drive tough but fair, and I always do that.
I spoke with Brian Barnhart, who oversees competition for the IndyCar Series. He's black flagged many drivers over the years, including Dixon, by the way, at Indianapolis 2 years ago. But Brian Barnhart has never had Danica Patrick black flag. Barnhart says he's had no reason to. His message to Danica and all the other drivers today in the drivers meeting: what comes around goes around. If you're difficult on the track to some other driver, you better believe that driver's going to remember it, and you will be paid back. Marty.
All right, thanks, Vince. Danica will be starting 14th. We already told you Dixon will be in the number 4 slot. And across the top of your screen, you'll see our starting grid and a lot of different drivers in some positions not normally for the ovals. We mentioned Graham Rahal. And then as you get further back into the 18th position, we're going to talk a little bit more about Helio Castroneves. But I want your take quickly on this Dixon-Patrick squabble.
Well, very unlike Scott Dixon to get out of a race car and talk about another driver and may say something that was really somewhat slanderous in a sense. And I was very surprised with Scott Dixon. I went back and looked at the tape from the race last week. I did not really see anything that Danica did that was wrong. She did not have some very good restarts, which put her car in a bad place in the racetrack. Maybe she is guilty of that, but blocking, I would say not.
All right, let's take a look at the points, the top 5 especially, as you've got Scott Dixon leading Helio Castroneves by 48. Now, we mentioned that Castroneves is starting in the 18th position. That is his worst starting position this year. And that leads us into his problem, his challenge for the night, and also what we should be watching.
Well, you know something, he has been a guy that really has run fast here, and the situation is that his car's not working well for him. But remember, Dan Wheldon did win this race in 2004, starting from the 20th position on a different fuel strategy, and that leads us into what to watch for. You know, first thing here is traffic. All the drivers say it's going to be hard to pass. It's going to be difficult to pass for position and also pass the lap cars. The fuel strategy we talked about, and fitness, Marty. We're going to talk about that here tonight too. Not only for the driver, but also for the crew.
Remember last year, Sam Hornish spun on the approach to the green flag lap because we had Hoosier rubber from a 100-lap Silver Crown race right before us, and we're green here, and so far everybody's clean. No, it doesn't go clean. Ryan Hunter-Reay, who was very quick in practice, was not able to make a qualifying run. He ends up doing the exact same thing that Sam Hornish did last year.
Well, it's power down. You want to get going. You want to take advantage of the start, Marty. Put your foot. We were talking about tires because they're worried if you flat spot at the tires, but the track is still, obviously the track is warm, tire pressures are still low, the tire temps are really low.
No harm there.
And he just tried to take advantage on the start. Now, the drivers have talked about starts and restarts. Even Will Power said to me this morning, can I go around the top side?
This is a carbon copy of last year.
Absolutely. You kept coming out of the turn, putting your foot on the gas. No traction control on these cars, so it's all up to the driver. So you see the low side right there, just trying to squeeze the throttle. He wants to get a good run down towards turn 1 and take advantage of maybe getting past a couple of cars. But fortunate for him, he didn't hit anything.
Let's talk a little bit more about the Silver Crown cars and the Hoosier tire rubber, why it is not compatible.
The drivers love it when we have a race series here like the Firestone Indy Lights that have the Firestone tires on there, somewhat compatible to the IndyCar tires that we run, but when you run a different type of rubber on this racetrack here, it doesn't give you the same adhesion that you are used to. It's going to take about 15-20 laps for our rubber to get down here and make the car handle as well as the drivers are used to.
So we're still under our first caution as we just literally have gotten underway here with Tony Kanaan, Marco Andretti, Graham Rahal, Scott Dixon, and Dan Wheldon, your top 5. Buddy Rice is in the 6th position with Hideki Muto 7th.
You know, this race has never been run caution-free. Most cautions were 9 in 2001. we'll probably see more of these yellow cautions tonight, Marty.
Well, and this will talk a little bit about strategy. It's a little early for anybody to come in, although obviously Ryan Hunter-Reay will probably be coming in because he's going to need 4 new Firestones after spinning, and he's at the very back of the field. A couple others may come in for a quick adjustment if they notice something. We'll see. As with the takers will be coming into pit lane. There is Ryan Hunter-Reay. There's also 2 other cars coming down pit lane. And is Justin Wilson in the 0-2 and Enrique Bernoldi, who had a crash in practice. And Brienne, I think you're in the 17 pit.
That's right, Marty. Ryan Hunter-Reay just pulled into his pit stall. 4 tires and fuel for the 17 car. An unfortunate start, but they have a long run.
So he gets back out underway. Justin Wilson, but Enrique Bernoldi is still in the pit. So we told you that they had a crash in practice. They did not make a qualifying run. He started dead last in the field as Ryan Hunter-Reay gets back out. As we take a look now, and Bernoldi's trying to describe what he's sensing in the car.
It looks like he's talking about a steering problem. They are up the front looking, and it looked like the mechanics had their wrenches in their hand to maybe do some adjustment on the tie rods. I remember, as you mentioned, this car was crashed, has not had really any laps on it whatsoever since its impact with the wall.
You can see them working on the left front. Let's go back and show you what happened to Enrique. And really, quite bizarre. Coming out of 4, it looked like it just got away from him that quickly.
Just there again, power down application. The back end starts to come around. 650 horsepower out of these Honda engines. It doesn't take much to light those rear tires up.
So they continue to work on that car. And word is now we will go back to green flag racing. Next time by, it will be Kanaan, Marco Andretti, Graham Rahal. That's your top 3, and we're back to green.
Yes, sir. Green, green, green. Out
Clear. Wow, Rahal took a peek into turn 1. It may cost him down into turn 3. Whoa, and he can't get it done as Scott Dixon tried to go underneath him.
Oh, that was really just being a little bit too greedy on the first couple of laps of your 300-lap race.
No. And Will Power has slammed the wall coming out of turn number 4. So Will Power, who in his last 4 ovals has finished 13th twice, 14th and 9th his last time out at Iowa, is going to be at the very end of this field today. Let's go back and see if we can see what happened to Will.
Remember, just off the restart, the low side. That is the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Looked like the car just started to snap out on him. I don't think he was really happy with the car because you can see how much he got off the gas going into the turn, and the 3 car of Helio Castroneves was able to go around the high side.
Will, who tested up at Watkins Glen earlier this week, had never driven that track. Can't wait to get up there, and I guess after what's happened now, he really can't wait as Jimmy Vasser looks on, team co-owner for both Will and Oriole Servia. The Delphi safety team. And Will has not gotten out of the car yet.
Well, that was a good hit, Marty, because anytime you go directly in forwards or backwards, you will certainly notice the impact.
Well, we had a total of 4 cautions last year. We've already got our 2nd for 8 laps out of the 10 that we have run. And let's check in with Vince Welch.
Mark Johnson, any indication that something may have been wrong that caused the incident?
No, not at all, Vince. It just looked like Helio was trying to come around the outside, and the engineers are just going through the data here to see if they see anything, but he gave no indication of anything that went wrong. Just, I don't know, unfortunate situation this early in the race. We'll have to look at the data and look at the video and see what we can see.
Taking a little bit of time for him to get out of the car. Have you heard from him that he is okay?
Yeah, no, he's fine. I think the only thing that's hurt here is our pride.
Thanks, Mark. Marty?
And there's Kevin Kalkoven, the other co-owner. Pit road is open. We can tell you that he did get out while you were doing your interview, Vince, as he walked to the safety vehicle, and there's what's left of the race car. Justin Wilson back into the pits, as is Darren Manning. The 23 of Townsend Bell, and Enrique Bernoldi is back in also. So we'll update you on all of that as we are side by side again this week here at Richmond International Raceway after 11 of 300 laps. Getting ready to go back to green flag racing here at Richmond, and it is Tony Kanaan leading Marco Andretti, Graham Rahal, Scott Dixon, and Dan Wheldon. That's your top 5. We're green. Everybody survives the first couple of turns on the restart. There is Helio Castroneves trying to get up underneath John Andretti. His teammate Ryan Briscoe also making some tracks towards the front. Bruno Junqueira gets around the 2 of AJ Foyt. On board with Danica Patrick. She is 14th right now after being passed by Castroneves and John Andretti. Let's get more from Vince Welch.
Danica's experiencing some understeer in her car, but they really believed that they could make some positions up on the restarts. But instead of her getting underneath John Andretti, she got passed by the Penske car. And that's not the strategy this team wants to see on these restarts, I can assure you.
All right, thanks, Vince, for the update. As you mentioned, Helio Castroneves, as there he is. As he started 18th, he has picked up 6 spots already and has moved up to the 12th position.
Well, it's interesting to see what's going on right now. That second lane looks like it's already starting to come in. Drivers were wondering if that would happen. It did not happen in practice as Helio starts to go underneath AJ Foyt the 4th. Jack Arute, you have more?
Well, Scott, as you and Marty alluded to, this is the worst start for Helio Castroneves and the longest winless streak for the guy. So what does Team Penske and Tim Cindric, his tactician, do? They try to keep him lighthearted. As they started to pull off the grid, Tim Cindric said, hey, do me a favor, you're so far in the back. When you come by our pits, will you wave and point yourself out to us? We can't see you from where we are. He got a chuckle out of that.
And while all this is going on, Will Power has been cleared from the medical center. Brienne, you're with him?
Marty, it was a hard hit for the Australian driver. Will, from your perspective, can you tell us what happened?
I just got loose. I mean, I was in buffeting air and really unfortunate. I was looking forward to this race. There's no points.
Physically, are you okay?
Yeah, I think so. I'll know tomorrow morning.
Guys, this is one driver that is definitely looking forward to next week when we get back to road course racing in Watkins Glen.
And remember, 5 of our last 8 races are on street and/or road courses. As we continue to look at Danica Patrick, and while we're watching her continuing to motor in 15th position, we eavesdropped on the radio.
There's a little bit of debris that I straddled that came off the car in front of me.
Tire pressures right now are exactly what they should be. Just for a warning, Will Power unhinged the car by going under the white line on the exit of 4. That's what happened to him. So remember, you got to stay above that white line, okay?
I had understeer, so I'm coming back on my adjustments right now for the next start. But other than...
Well, you see, while that radio was going on, that AJ Foyt the 4th has hit the wall in turn number 2, bringing out our 3rd caution. And a lot of damage to the Vision Racing number 2.
It's very unfortunate because he just started to run a lot better. Remember Indianapolis, he went through a spell there where they just didn't seem to do anything right. He was very frustrated. In his last couple of races, he started to really come on strong. And last weekend, as you see his teammate car right there of Ed Carpenter, looks like he's obviously hit something in the toe-in on the front, is completely off on that. So I'm not sure if this is related to the AJ Foyt machine, if they both contacted each other, or if that's just a result of trying to avoid something that happened in front of them. So we'll see if we can find that out for you.
Let's go back and take a look. Oh, contact with John Andretti is what happened to the 2 car.
Yeah, a little aggressive on AJ Foyt the 4th.
And I saw the 20 car. It looked like he hit debris. Take a look on board with the 2.
So he just ends up getting on the left rear. That's high to make that high line work. Just probably coming down and encroaching a little bit and ended up getting into the wheel of John Andretti's car, as you can see from the front as you ride along with Danica right now.
Take a look, see if we can see what happened to the 20 car. Watch for the bright yellow.
Oh, there we go. A big piece of debris
right
coming off, which is the rear attenuator from the back of AJ Foyt the 4th's car, comes over and hits his teammate's car.
Vince?
Well, both the Vision Racing cars damaged in that situation. Tony, Anthony was just telling me earlier today how they feel like maybe you've got some momentum going in the positive direction after the 5th place finish last week. What kind of setback is this for your team?
Well, obviously it's disappointing to be out after a few laps of green, and you know, we were looking forward to doing well here this weekend, but you know, this isn't very good right now. Obviously, I think Anthony's been fighting loose tonight. Just a few laps we've run, and apparently Ed must have gotten hit by some debris, because I see he's in here with a bent right front. So short night.
Marty?
And Ed Carpenter, this guy has had such bad luck. In his last 3 races, a 20th, a 9th at Texas, a 23rd last week at Iowa, and now tonight out early again.
And he has run so strong, as you're mentioning, all the way through. And, you know, it's just frustration. You don't think that you could do anything right. And at this point in time, he realizes that the points chase of being anywhere in the top 10 is really going downhill for him.
Well, take a look at his first 4 races. Best finish being a 5th. In the last 3 races, a 9th. His average gone from 7th to 17th. All right, we're getting ready for pit stops. Let's get our ethanol triple pits. Vince, you're up.
Well, Tony Kanaan and Marco Andretti will be coming in to make their initial stops, and you see Danica Patrick in on her stop as well. The Kanaan box empty at the moment as the AGR teams play out their strategy, and there's a lot of strategy to be played out, but Danica is coming out. Kanaan did not come in.
Yes, Tony stayed out, as did Marco Andretti, Graham Rahal, Scott Dixon, Dan Wheldon. A lot of the top front runners was the people further back that took advantage of this quick opening of the pits. So as the race leader goes, we now have some teams on some split strategies, which is what we mentioned at the beginning. And we'll talk more about it when we get a chance, a little bit when we get done with the break. Stay with us. We'll go back to green. Vision Racing continues to try and repair Ed Carpenter's car. Let's talk about tomorrow on ESPN2, NASCAR Now at 10 a.m. Eastern, followed by NHRA Race Day at 11 a.m. And then it's NHRA Powerade Series Summit Racing Equipment Nationals, the finals, 7 p.m. Eastern. Then on Monday night, catch NASCAR Now at 6 o'clock, all on ESPN2. We're getting ready to go green, but here is one more look at what happened.
Now, Foyt's going down, tries to get to the low side so he can get himself going down the back straight. Ends up happening is nowhere for John Andretti to go, so Foyt is on call on that one.
So now we're back to green flag racing. After our 3rd caution, it is Kanaan, Andretti, Rahal, Dixon, and Wheldon. Wow, the 2 Penske cars got a little close. You're looking from Elio Castroneves back to his teammate Ryan Briscoe. Castroneves is now 10th. And he's on the high side of the 5 and going quickly around Serbia. Can he make it stick up there?
That is amazing, because all the drivers I spoke to were concerned that this had turned into a one-groove racetrack. Even Brian Barnhart, the president of competition, said the drivers' meeting this morning, we hope the 2nd groove comes in. I expected it to come in halfway through the race, but it's already in for a few of these drivers.
Elio's up to 8th, Jack.
And Marty, you guys should keep in mind, remember, during practice and before qualifications, this car had a number of different vibrations. He was not at all happy with the car. But during that last caution period, he told Tim Cindric, when Cindric asked him, if we pit, would you want to make any changes? He said, no, the car feels very good. So we have, as you've alluded to, seen the first car to venture to the outside here.
And he has made it work so far in the early going. We're working lap 44 of 300. Let's check in with Brienne.
Marty, I'm here with a disappointed AJ Foyt the 4th. AJ, can you walk us through what happened out there?
You know, it's tough to really tell on the replay. I don't know if maybe I came down on him, or maybe he should have waited for another corner to try to get me. I mean, it seemed pretty close, whatever happened. But the most important thing is, you know, it's disappointing for the Lilly team, and all my guys worked so hard, and it's such an early night for us to go out. I mean, we had a pretty decent qualifying run, and we thought we had a good car to race with today. So just unfortunate for Lilly and my team that we're already out of the race.
To make things worse, he collected teammate Ed Carpenter, who's with Vince Welch.
Ed, how did you get collected in that incident?
AJ was up in the wall and had to go low to avoid him, and his attenuator was bouncing down the track and just bounced right into my right front suspension and collapsed it all. So we're trying to fix it. You know, there's been so many yellows early. Hopefully we can get back out and maybe pick up a couple points, you know, try to turn this second half of the season around. We just haven't been able to get anything going, just bad luck. So try to get the Menards car back out there and, you know, take advantage of somebody else's misfortunes maybe.
Disappointing for Ed Carpenter. 2 weeks in a row he's been out with a crash, Marty.
Yes, it is, as we looking at a young man who's looking pretty good right now. Jamie Kamara started 24th. He has moved the most positions of anybody on the track. He has come up 12 positions to 12th, and here are other big movers.
You know, and the impressive thing about Kamara is that he's the other guy that seems to be going around the high side of drivers up on the top part of the racetrack. Very impressive for him.
His teammate Enrique Bernoldi is out for the night, so he's carrying the banner, Brienne.
Well, he's carrying his banner, guys, for not only his team, but his growing family. His wife, Giovanna, gave birth to their first son Wednesday afternoon, a little boy named Luca. And Jamie got to spend about 4 hours with this new baby boy before he had to leave here for Richmond. So you can imagine he's very anxious to get back home to his family.
Well, it looks like he's anxious to get under Townsend Bell right now as he's got the low line. And boy, he is slicing and dicing.
That race car is working for him. Great confidence booster. He's not had a great season so far, but a young driver that has a manager by the name of Tony Kanaan. Tony's been working with him not only off track but on track to help him with his career. And this will be a great confidence booster because his car is working well. But he has to remember, Marty, don't overdrive it. Have patience. And that's not showing a lot of patience.
Boy, he just goes right around Ryan Briscoe on the low side. To give you an idea, his season best and career best finish was last week at Iowa. That was 20th. And right now, he has moved into the top 10. So Jamie Kamara, a man on a mission right now at lap 53 of 300. All right, let's check back up a little further in the field. Let's check in on our points leader, Scott Dixon. He started 4th. That's exactly where he is right now, about 2.8 seconds behind Tony Kanaan. And we've dropped on his radio to find out what's going on with that race car.
Car seems decent. We're definitely a lot quicker than the guys in front of us. It's just waiting for Rael's car to go off a little bit more. It looks like he's suffering from a bit of understeer. I'm a bit loose off the 4, but the rest is just a bit understeer. Remember, track position is key here, right, guys?
Well, mate, there's a pretty good chance your boys will get you in front of him on the stop, eh?
All right, that was Packy Wheeler telling him, okay, the pit crew will probably get you ahead. Let's get more from Jack Arute.
You hear how cold and calculating Scott Dixon is on that radio. The one thing that he said just a little bit before that, when he was describing how the car was, he said, well, I got it sideways going into turn number 1. He said, but guys, don't make any changes on the car when we stop. It was my fault. I was too aggressive too early in this race. Here's one thing to keep in mind. He and his teammate Dan Wheldon right now under that caution were able to get 9.7 miles to the gallon under caution. That's amazing on a short track.
Well, you talk about a guy who has been on a mission in the last 17 races since last year. Let's talk about the first 7 races on ovals just this season. You saw there the graphic as the comparison. But in his last 17, whoop, and it looks like Jamie Kamara has gone backwards a little bit as Townsend Bell has gotten around him. Let's go back and take a look.
Oriol Servia just gets in front of him, takes the air off the nose, sends him high up to the wall, does a great job on keeping it off the wall, and then the other cars take advantage of his lost momentum, and they get by.
So Jamie gives up 1 position, had a bit of a moment, and now he'll try and regroup his thoughts and get back to it. He's currently running in 12th, so he dropped a couple of positions. Let's check back in with our race leader as it has been 60 laps since, he started this thing on pole, and he is still on pole. And let's get more from Vince Welch.
Well, Marty, Tony Kanaan had only led 8 laps before here at Richmond before this race. He's been out front the entire 61 here today. Says the race car is a little bit loose, but otherwise it's fine. It's been a bit of an unusual weekend for Kanaan. The air conditioning in his motor coach went out, so he's been staying at a hotel all weekend. He told me before it's the first time in 7 years he's not stayed at the track on a race weekend. He said, hey, it's not so bad. I've kind of enjoyed it. It's certainly suiting him well so far, being out of the routine.
And he's getting ready to put EJ Vizo a lap down, which means we'll have 19 cars on the lead lap. And there is Marco Andretti also going past EJ as he takes the low line in the 26 car. So as Saturday night continues to unfold, the dogfight is back in the pack because Tony Kanaan's in control right now. So we've just gone yellow here at Richmond International Raceway, and it is for debris on the racetrack. And this equals the number of cautions we had for the entire race last year here in 2007 to 2008. Be sure to join us on ABC next Sunday for the Camping World IndyCar Grand Prix at Watkins Glen. Next Sunday at 3:30 Eastern on ABC. As you ride along with Scott Dixon, he is currently running in 4th position behind Tony Kanaan, who has literally led every lap so far, and quite a feat. But you might be surprised that the man in 4th place, Scott Dixon, has led every lap once here, 206 in a rain-shortened race from start to finish back in 2003 when he won here at Richmond International Raceway. So it's not uncommon for somebody to get out front and stay out front, as the pits are still closed. As we'll wait to see who the takers are. Now remember, the first 10 cars have not pitted since the drop of the green flag. Then you drop back to Justin Bell, who's in 11th. He last pitted on lap 58.
And a lot of those leaders that did not pit, Marty, were certainly expecting to have another yellow, that they'd be able to come in and service their car underneath a yellow caution period versus the green when there's a chance of losing a lap. So a gamble on their part, which is now paid off. When the pits open, expect to see everybody come in, and they'll get back out towards the front and try to reclaim their great track position.
And let me say I said Justin Bell and got my Justin Wilson and Townsend Bell. So want to get everybody on the same page. It was Townsend Bell. And we've got our ethanol triple pits coming up as here comes the race leaders.
Well, Marty, through all the years that Tony Kanaan has been here, as we take a look at the ethanol triple pits, Kanaan on top, Marco Andretti in the middle, Graham Rahal still a strong 3rd on the bottom. Kanaan has never made a green flag pit stop here at Richmond. So far, that's still the case. 4 tires and fuel says the car's a tick loose, but there will be no changes. None for Andretti either. Rahal already away. It's been a good start for Graham Rahal and the Newman Haas team so far.
Whoa, and look at the jam as they come out of pit lane. And the 9 car of Scott Dixon, it may be the biggest loser in this deal. So the race off pit road, and you can see Castro Neves picks up 6 positions and Dixon loses 5. So 2 of the big stories on pit lane. Let's get the update on Dixon. Jack?
Guys, you have 4 guys over the wall with the front tires and the rear tires. The right rear tire, when they were taking the center lug off, they got the tire off okay, but then they couldn't get the right rear tire back on as quickly as possible. By the time they got it down and dropped the jack, it was a traffic jam right in front of Scott Dixon's pit. Rather than pull right out and create havoc, he had to wait for a spot and slide in.
So what it means is that you've got Scott Dixon all the way back in 11th right now. Take a look at the race off pit road. Jamie Kamara is your race leader here at Richmond International Raceway. And as the wave around has just taken place here at Richmond International Raceway, there is, for the first time in his IndyCar career, race leading Jamie Kamara with Danica Patrick 2nd. It's got enough time for us to tell you about what's on tomorrow on ESPN2. We've got NASCAR now at 10 a.m. Eastern, and NHRA Race Day follows at 11 a.m. And then it's the finals from the Summit Racing Equipment Nationals, 7 p.m. Eastern. Then on Monday night, don't forget to catch NASCAR Now at 6 o'clock. All of it on ESPN2. And as we come back, as get ready to go back to green flag racing, Ed Carpenter is climbing back into the race car. So they have worked on the suspension that got damaged. And Vince, what's the latest?
Well, upper wishbone was one of the pieces that had to be replaced. And as you heard Ed Carpenter mention during our interview a few moments ago, disheartening for this team that also crashed last week at Iowa. But every little bit of points you can get is critical in the chase for the championship. Not likely to be a championship contender, but those positions are still valuable, Marty.
All right, thanks, Vince. As we're getting ready to go back to green flag racing, and we're being told there'll be no start. Race officials did not like the way Jamie Kamara brought him around. And you might notice that 25 of Marty Roth in between Kamara and Patrick. Roth is 22nd. 4 laps down, so he is not in the mix. And let's get an update from pit lane from Brian Pettigo.
Marty, Jamie Kamara likes his race car. No changes have been made. He has been to this racetrack before. In 07, he tested here with Andretti Green Racing, but this is his first start in a race at Richmond International Raceway. He said he likes this track because a driver can make a bigger difference here, and what a difference he's made today.
And we've got a spinning car again and a crash right as we go back to green flag racing, and it is Buddy Rice, who had such a promising weekend going. And Rice, who was in the top 10, in fact, he was running 9th, and there's Bruno Junqueira, as he was also involved. Remember, they destroyed a car last weekend, and Ryan Briscoe involved. So 3 cars in this melee on the restart, and we're now up to our 5th caution.
You know, this always amazes me because we're lap 80, 81 of 300. And you have to get to the end if you're going to have any shot at being up towards the front to collect points or win the race. So
they all stopped right in front of you there.
It's a case where one mistake just leads to other situations on the racetrack. That's a dirt tracker there.
Yeah. I don't even think that would work well on the dirt, quite frankly, but tough break for Buddy. Let's go back and see if we can see what happened.
Everybody's on the backstretch, getting into the turn. There you go, right there. There's the accordion effect, somebody accelerating, somebody slowing down, which is absolutely not possible to do on a start. As soon as somebody starts to slow down going into the turn, and that usually is like a situation from somebody up front accelerating and slowing down, accelerating, slowing down. When you come to a restart, you absolutely have to be on pace with what the leader does. And this is probably just an accordion effect for somebody up front that did something and somebody had to slow it back up. And see, we're onto the front stretch here, and it's already just started to happen.
Well, that was Buddy's incident, and then the rest of it happens a little bit further back when they start checking up. From the flag stand this time.
Well,
Watch further back.
You've got 2 incidents.
Yeah.
Buddy's doing his own thing in the front, and that accident in the back is happening separately.
On board with Hideki Muto. He sees Buddy. He checks up. Everything happens behind. Here's Scott Dixon's look. All right, let's check in with Jackaroo.
Well, Ryan Briscoe, he pulled the car back behind the wall. It's going back to the garage area. Ryan, what happened from your side?
I don't know what's going on when we're calling green, 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 and everyone gets on the brakes. I don't know. I mean, whoever's up there starting the race in the car, I don't know what they're doing, but, you know, we got to be.
Let's take a look at the replay and see if you can get an idea of it here. Looks like you got into the 14 and it was an accordion effect.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I was heard go, go, go in the mirror on the radio, and all of a sudden we got there and everyone's on the brakes, and I just got in the back of Darren, and then that was it. Then I got collected when I was going slow, and hey, it's a real shame. You know, this is our home track, and really wanted to do well here, and you know, it's a real bummer.
Let's check in with Brian Pettigo for someone else that was involved in that altercation. Bree?
Jack, a frustrated Buddy Rice. What a promising start and not a great finish. What happened out there?
I don't know. I think I screwed up. I think that's just what it comes down to right now. I don't know. Our car was running good. It seemed to be good on the longer runs. We weren't quite what we need to be initially, but I don't know. I think I just probably flat screwed up. I don't think I got hit or anything, so it's just it's disappointing for Brian Reinbold and the roll coater car. I mean, we could have had a really good night tonight, and I don't know, kind of seemed to throw it away.
We're taking a look again. If you want to take a look in the playback screen over there, what exactly you were going through at this moment?
I mean, it's just on the restart. Tires are cold a little bit, and I was just trying to make sure I kept up. And I know the yellow all came out at the same time. There's something going on behind us, but that had nothing to do with it. So that's the way it goes.
Frustrating night, guys, but you got to admire one thing about Buddy Rice. Takes acceptance of when he's done wrong.
Well, Buddy had a mechanical put him out at Iowa last week, and this is his second crash of the year. Here are the cars that were involved. Vitor Mira, also Darren Manning, we're told, is behind the wall right now and getting pushed back towards the garage area. There is Bruno Junqueira's car on the hook, also being removed from the racetrack. So total of 5 cars now out of action in this restart crash. We have 17 cars on the lead lap. There you saw the A.J. Foyt machine going back behind the wall. So as we continue under our 5th caution here, it's not the record, the most for cautions. Back in 2001, we had 9. Continuing under our 5th caution here at Richmond International Raceway, time for our GoDaddy.com trivia question, and it is, when is the last time a driver led every lap of an IndyCar Series race? And if you were paying attention, I think I gave this away a little earlier.
I know that one because you've already told us.
All right, the answer is Mr. Know-It-All.
Bottom of the screen.
Okay.
206 laps in Richmond.
Yeah, it was back in 2003 when Scott started on pole. As let's take a flashback look at that wonderful performance by Scott. It was a rainy day as he was able to hold on and take the win, leading every single lap, 206 in all in the rain-shortened event. So meanwhile, back here, we're trying to get this race restarted. Jamie Kamara, who has never led until tonight in an IndyCar event, here on lap 91, is in front of Danica Patrick. Tony Kanaan is 3rd. Helio Castroneves is 4th. Marco Andretti is 5th. Now, it has been 56 laps since those top 2 cars have pitted, but they could go quite a bit more as we're back to green flag racing. And here comes Kanaan underneath Danica. Oh, 3 wide. This can't work. Oh, hang on. Wow. Somehow, I think Castroneves did the right thing. And oh no, another crash. We've got Vitor Meira into the wall in turn number 2, and also John Andretti involved. So just when we dodged a bullet with 3 abreast in the corner, all of a sudden, another crash.
Well, there's one thing that Brian Barnhart, the president of competition of the league, says every time we go into a driver's meeting, that yellows breed yellows.
Never more true than tonight.
It certainly is happening. But what you mentioned, Helio Castroneves, I mean, 3 wide, but smartly got out of the throttle as we see John Andretti starting to climb out of his car. Got out of the throttle because he knew he's going to run out of real estate. There's the Delphi safety crew helping Vitor Meira, which is a Delphi-sponsored car.
Well, and the question we have for John Andretti, will this be the last time we see him for this year? The rumblings around the pit area is that this could be the last time that he'll be in the cockpit of the car. And I asked him in the driver's meeting, and he said, no, I can't tell you one way or the other.
Jay Howard, who was the driver that was hired earlier in the year to drive that car, they put John Andretti in so he has the opportunity to help the team build a car that was going to be faster for them, because John has experience in Indy cars. Jay Howard was a rookie, not so much experience, but I think it's worked out well for John Andretti and the Roth Racing team because they have improved their car. Now, let's see this restart. As it all starts to unfold, you see everybody rushing into turn 1 on this restart. And watch Helio Castroneves go on the high side around Danica Patrick and also Tony Kanaan on the low side. Now, Helio gets out of the gas, knows that he's going to run out of real estate, and the accident that we just saw has happened behind us going into the turn. Now, you can see John Andretti getting underneath Vitor Meira. Vitor looks like he was slowing up. John Andretti carried too much speed into the turn, ended up catching into the back of the 4 Delphi machine National Guard car of Vitor Meira.
So it's Andretti's first DNF this year for Roth Racing. For Vitor, it is the 4th crash and 5th DNF. That team has been on an up-and-down roller coaster. Remember finishing 2nd at Indianapolis and then coming right back the next week at Milwaukee and ended up having the airborne crash.
That was the Knievel. Didn't we classify that as the Knievel jump?
Yes, and unfortunately, Robbie Knievel was doing his stunt that week, and he landed much better than poor Vitor.
But you know, this is tough on the teams, Marty, certainly right now as we're aboard with Helio Castroneves, because we are on the 2nd race of 6 in a row. So in these situations, I always think about the teams and the crew trying to actually get back and fix these cars.
Let's get an update on Helio Castroneves. He survived that wild 3 wide, Jack.
And Marty, you said something had to give when you were given the word pictures to that, and that's exactly what Helio Castroneves radioed to his tactician and team president, Tim Cindric. He said, Tim, I'm sorry. I went down into turn number 1. I gambled. I thought that, and I quote, she would lift. she being Danica Patrick. And then he said, and she didn't. And that's why I backed out. Let me update you as well on Team Penske. They're without the captain for the second week in a row, still on the mend after a medical procedure. So Clive Howell was the man that was on the board for Ryan Briscoe. Before the race, Roger Penske called in for the pre-race briefing, and this is what Clive Howell told me. He said, he told us all, don't do anything stupid. Maybe he should have said, be on the lookout for those restarts. Let's go to Brianne Pedigo.
Jack, I'm with Darren Manning. Your crew's right behind us trying to fix your race car. Will you be able to get back out tonight?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we will, especially seeing as a couple of guys have gone out there just a few laps after us. So, yeah, just a shame, really. I mean, it's pretty pathetic how the guys are driving out there on the restarts. I mean, we've seen it the last few races now, and you know, Brian needs to step in. You know, we're supposed to be professionals, and everybody's checking up and trying to get massive advantages. You see Andretti crash into the back of Vito. It's pretty stupid to call ourselves professionals, really, how things are going on. Nothing that we can do. Some of the guys at the back of the field there, Briscoe, I feel sorry for Ryan. You know, he ran into the back of me. I nearly ran into the back of Dixon, which would have been terrible. 3 best mates crashing out of the field. I mean, it's just symptom of, you know, poor officialdom, I believe. You know, they've got to do something about it. But, you know, it's just a shame, you know, the 14 car, the ABC car, going out like this in this race. That we were trying to get back on track after a couple of bad races. But we were showing good. We were up to 12th place from 22nd on the grid, and car felt pretty good. We were making some good strategy calls and changes to the car. So feeling a bit happier, but just disappointing to go out so early.
Got some frustrated drivers down here, Vince.
One with George Klotz handles the strategy for Tony Kanaan. Started on the pole tonight, currently second. You pitted at lap 172, or at lap 72. With all the yellows, how's this affecting the fuel strategy? Could you possibly make it on just one more stop?
I mean, it gets closer and closer as the race goes on. Obviously, there's a lot of crashes. I think the key to right now is just to keep the car up front, just keep them up there, and just see how things pan out. If this continues, that's going to be the strategy from here on out.
With Jamie Kamara at the front of the grid right now, as far as the lead is concerned, a driver who's never led a race before, how has his pace been from Tony Kanaan's perspective as we've tried to do some restarts here?
Yeah, I mean, Tony, I think, is a lot quicker than him, and you know, hopefully Jamie will do us a little favor here, and him and Tony are buddies anyway, so hope he'll keep that in mind on this restart here.
Yeah, Tony Kanaan, a mentor for Jamie Kamara, and we'll see how friendly he is here on the restart, Marty.
Well, and let's go back to what you know, Jack reported on with Helio Castroneves and his comments, because it is harder to pass on these short ovals, so everybody tries to get the advantage, gets the red mist in their eyes, as we like to call it, and get as much ground as they can on these restarts. And he said, I thought she'd lift, and she didn't.
And I think he thought that because Tony Kanaan was rushing down the inside of her on that restart, so he probably expected that she would just sort of lift off the throttle there and sort of slow it down a little bit, and he tried to take advantage of that going around the high side, and it just didn't work for him. But you have to give him credit for trying, because this is a difficult track to pass on. Now, the 4th car in line is the 3 of Helio Castroneves, the car on the low side, the 711 machine of Tony Kanaan, and in the middle, Danica Patrick. And at this point in time, he probably thought that he would be clear, Helio Castroneves would be clear of Patrick, but that wasn't the case. We'll hear it one more time. Kamara's up front, gets not a bad restart. Tony's looking on the inside. Helio says, I'll go around the high side here, expecting her to lift off. She does not. She carries speed. She understands from the spotters what's going on, and she gets her off the throttle.
And here is Danica making a pit stop. It's been 68 laps since her last pit. Vince?
Well, they're going to change all 4 Firestone tires and fill her up full of fuel, and they also make a front end adjustment. So Danica Patrick's been complaining of understeer throughout the course, and said it had been getting worse after her initial stop, so they make some changes.
And Townsend Bell also made a pit stop, so he gets service and comes back out. You see Ed Carpenter there. He is back out on the racetrack, although Ed is several laps down. As let's check in with Brianne Pedigo. She's caught up with Vitor Meira.
A disappointed Vitor Meira, Marty. Vitor, you're very clear about what happened out on the racetrack. Tell us.
Well, everybody was really having a hard time in restarts, and I restarted clean and went to turn 1, and John Andretti hit me from behind, and again, everybody's trying to gain position. He was really apologetic about it, and but the fact is that the Delphi National Guard car is out of the race, and now we're going to have to rebuild the car and go to Watkins Glen, which has been a good track for us, and we're going to get it there.
Take a look at this replay for us and see if you can walk us through what happened.
I mean, once more, everybody was having a tough time there, and as you can see, he slowed down, and basically he didn't. I mean, that's what it happened. I slowed down like everybody else, and he didn't. And again, he made sure to apologize, and again, he's a gentleman right there, and that's how it should be.
Most important thing, guys, Vitor is okay, and we'll be there next week. Vince?
Guys, down in the Danica Patrick pit, and I want to show you Corey McLish, who is the fueler for Danica Patrick. And you talk about NFL guys maybe playing hurt. This gentleman on Tuesday underwent his 3rd spinal tap procedure. Had that done in Indianapolis, trying to diagnose the cause of spinal cord issues that he's experiencing. You talk about tough. Have a spinal tap on Tuesday, get on an airplane a day later, and come to Richmond and go over the wall. As one team member told me, this guy's not only a stud, he's a hero in the minds and the eyes of many of these Andretti Green Racing members. I talked to Corey McLish about his situation earlier this afternoon. He said, I'm supported by prayer and I'm motivated by the fear of team manager Kyle Moyer. So he's even keeping his sense of humor. Marty?
Well, and we've talked so much as we're getting ready to go back to green about how much athletic training these pit crews do. They work out as a team in many cases. As we get ready to go back racing, it'll be Jamie Kamara in front of Tony Kanaan, Marco Andretti, Elio Castroneves, and Dan Wheldon. And Kanaan's diving underneath. Can't get it done. So much for friendship.
Well, when you get a chance to lead your very first race, you're not going to let it go very easily. And if you let Kanaan go underneath him, that would be something that would haunt him for a while. But now he can say, I held off Tony Kanaan and went around the outside and led the race.
And has opened up about a 3-car length lead. Another 3-car lengths back to Marco Andretti. Then it's Elio Castroneves, Dan Wheldon. Oriol Servia has moved up to 6th. Graham Rahal is 7th.
But as you see Kamara, he gets into 1 and 2 not badly. He does not seem to come off turn 2 as strong as Tony Kanaan. So Tony might get a chance to have a look going down here into turn 3. Now what Tony will do will sit back and watch to see where Kamara's car is strongest and where he has some handling issues, and then he will try and take advantage of that.
Well, everybody should be impressed with the ability of Jamie Kamara and this team, Eric Bachelard's team, to maintain the lead and first to get there. Remember, this car started all the way back in the 24th position.
And I think the thing we see right now is Kanaan starting to have a look on the underside of Kamara is that if you can qualify up front, you probably have the ability to run up front. But a lot of times they don't know the tracks. As Kamara's starting to run just a little bit high, they don't know the tracks, they don't qualify up front, and when you get back to the middle or the back of the pack, it's difficult to get yourself forward.
It has been 78 laps since Jamie Kamara last pitted. It's been 41 laps since Tony Kanaan. So the tires that Jamie has quite a few more laps, although he does have the lighter fuel load.
Well, I'll tell you, this is very good for his career as we see Marco Andretti now taking advantage of Kanaan's slip up because he just tried to get past and he loses his momentum. But for Kamara himself right now, Marty, this is something that he wanted to do a long time ago, was to lead a race, and now he gets to do it for as many laps as he has, and he has the opportunity to be a race leader here today.
Jamie came up through the Indy Lights series, as did the man in second place, Marco Andretti. And in fact, even many years ago, so did Tony Kanaan and Elio Castroneves. In fact, those two were teammates at one time in the Indy Lights. And here comes Marco. He looks for the lead.
He's inside, still inside, behind is clear. Behind
and he's got it.
Still inside, still there, plus 2 behind.
You heard the call from the spotter, so we have another new race leader, our 3rd different leader, as Marco Andretti takes over here as we're working lap 117.
Now, he did a good job by trying to stay on the high side. He carried his momentum out of the turn. Marco was clearly passed. I was not very happy to see how he just sort of dove down behind Marco coming out of the turn, because sure enough, Kanaan could have been directly behind him and we could have caused an accident with that issue.
Vince, you got more on Marco?
Well, it's interesting that Marco Andretti told me earlier this weekend that it's really hard to work with your teammate on a track as short as this one. As you see Kamara take a look at Marco, Marco said when you're always turning, it's pretty difficult to be teammates. And, well, you saw that when he went right past Tony Kanaan. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Kanaan up on the back end of Marco Andretti pretty shortly.
That's Marty Roth in the 25. He is multiple laps down, and Tony Kanaan clears him easily. 5 of our top 10 have never raced here at Richmond before. We had 14 first-timers here at the action track, and 5 of them are doing extremely well right now. As you can see, as other cars, there's Oriol Servia, his first trip here. As for Graham Rahal right behind him, Servia's 6th, Rahal is 7th. Those are 2 of our first-timers in the top 10.
Now the black car, the number 25 of Marty Roth, is going so slow right now. I've got to believe that he's going to get called in by the IRL officials, told to make a change in the car to go out and see if he can bring up his speed, because he's really starting to be a bit of a havoc out there.
So as Marco Andretti continues to run up front, he's had some troubles, but remember, he finished 3rd just last week in Iowa. Maybe another good night on the short track for an Andretti. Back here at Richmond International Raceway, that's the battle for second. Let's take a look at our Firestone Lap Leaders, as you've got Tony Kanaan leading the most so far at 71. Jamie Kamara, the rookie, with 44 laps led. And our current lap leader, race leader, Marco Andretti, with 12 and counting. In fact, let's go up to speed. Vince, you're up.
Marco Andretti, the leader of this race, and Marco says he loves this racetrack. He said because it's a driver's track, and when you hit the setup right, it really rewards you. As you can see, it's rewarding Marco Andretti right now, and a tip of the cap to his engineer, Eddie Jones, who definitely hit the setup just right, Brienne.
Vince in second position, Jamie Kamara. Right now, he's got to be reminding himself of what he called the most important part of this race, and that is patience. He said 300 laps is a long way to go. I've got to be patient. Vince?
3rd place is Tony Kanaan, and you've seen Kanaan try to take a peek a time or 2 underneath Jamie Kamara to no avail. But right now, Kanaan is content to run where he is. He knows that track position is critical here, and when it really comes down to it, I think he also believes that he's a man that can get by Jamie Kamara when necessary. Jack?
And Helio Castroneves, fellow Brazilian, and there is a yellow in turn 4, guys. Oh, Graham Rahal.
Yes, unfortunately, Graham Rahal, who was running in the top 10, has crashed and turn 4 and has brought out our 8th caution, just 1 shy of our record here at Richmond International Raceway. And there is his dad, Bobby Rahal, and you can see he just shakes his head. And Graham was coming off some not stellar performances on the ovals, but at least he was doing what everybody said he needed to do, which was finishing, and now this.
And that's the thing all the drivers want to do is finish, especially these transfer teams that came over to this series. And I think that's why Will Power was so disappointed when he went out very early in this race. Talked to him earlier in the morning. He said, I just want to finish. I want to be able to get some laps underneath here and learn about this, because all these drivers expect to be around this series for a long period of time, and the knowledge they get from running this track here will they bring back next year. If you don't finish, you don't have that knowledge. You don't have that base to go back on. Now that's a single car situation, just possibly carrying some too much speed going into the turn, or back into the car is just a little bit loose. You can see here from looking forward from Hideki Muto's car, the back end just starts to come around on the car in front, which is driven by Graham Rahal. The car could have just been a little bit loose. That means when the back end wants to slide out from underneath you, the car is fast that way, Marty, but you really have to hang on to it.
Pits are still closed. Of course, Graham crashed at Indy early. He then followed up with another crash in Milwaukee, and then at Texas, finished 11th, and then at Iowa last week, finished 10th. So that's what we were talking about. He was starting to do exactly what the team and everybody needed him to do, and unfortunately, he's not going to make it to the finish here with his 3rd crash. And now the team will have to get the car ready to go to Watkins Glen, because that's where we'll be next Sunday, and you'll see it on ABC. It's the Camping World IndyCar Grand Prix at the Glen. It's next Sunday, 3:30 Eastern on ABC. And for more, just log on to ESPN.com. So let me correct myself. I think I said 8 cautions. We're up to 7 total cautions now, as we have had a total of 67 laps so far, and pit lane is now open. And Vince, let's send it your way.
Well, Tony Kanaan coming in his car a bit loose on the entry of turn 3, but he and Hideki Muto, the only 2 AGR drivers that are coming. You see the 2 Ganassi cars are in, and also Helio Castroneves in as well. It's going to be a race off pit road, and remember, track position critical. Helio Kanaan gets out first ahead of the Ganassi and Penske cars.
All right, now we'll see the freight train come on out of pit lane. Here is the race off pit road. Tony Kanaan picks up 1 spot. Dan Wheldon picks up 2. Jamie Kamara loses 3. So we had several cars that did stay out, including Marco Andretti. And there you see the race off pit road. AJ Vizo right now shown in second. He stayed out as well. So did Townsend Bell. Danica Patrick. That's your top 4. Richmond International Raceway holds 112,000, and tonight we are well over 60,000. As you can see, just a tremendous crowd as we have 1 to go here at the line. And let's talk a little fuel strategy, Vince Welch.
Ziggy Harkus, real quickly, why did you not bring Marco in, and can you make it on 1 more stop?
Yeah, that's what we're trying to. Track position is pretty important here. We're trying to see if we can make it on 1 more stop and get to the end. So hopefully we'll get a little bit of luck and get there. So I think we're okay.
Counting the yellows, Marty.
Well, Jamie Kamara went 101 laps between pit stops as we're back to green flag racing, and you can see Tony Kanaan on the move, gets around Danica Patrick, move him to 4th.
Just a little bit of wheel knocking going on between Dan Wheldon and the 3 car of Helio Castroneves.
On board with Wheldon, that's Kamara right in front of him to the right. Whoa, getting a little dicey up there between Patrick and Helio Castroneves. And now she drops a position on Jamie Kamara as he gets around on the high side. Jack?
Helio Castroneves, one of the cars that pitted, and he made a major wing adjustment on the car. The previous stop before that, they changed the right side air pressures. Why? They want to be able to run more to the outside. That's exactly what he's doing with the Team Penske car. Now he makes a liar out of me, going to the inside, guys.
And we've got another yellow as another crash as Ryan Hunter-Reay and Mario Marias are involved. Another pair of our first-timers here at Richmond International Raceway. We are just 5 laps from halfway, and now we are at 8 cautions. A lot of damage on both these cars, and remember, we turn right around and have to go right to Watkins Glen next week, as we are in a stretch of 6 straight races. So Bobby Rahal has had a bad night all the way around. His son crashes out for caution number 7. And his driver, Ryan Hunter-Reay, crashes out for caution number 8.
You know, Ryan Hunter-Reay had such a strong car when they were here. Remember, he was the first one out for qualifying yesterday. They had a problem with the paddle shifters. They could not get the car into gear. So unfortunately, they get a chance to qualify. Now the 19, Marias, is on the bottom side. They both are looking for the same piece of real estate, much like we saw earlier on with AJ Foyt the 4th, trying to come down to try to get the car low enough so he's not going to have the car go up towards the wall. As the drivers always generally have to do, once you are out of the car, you need to go inside the Honda vehicle and go into the medical center. You can see Ryan Hunter-Reay right now doesn't seem to be very pleased. Tell that Marias was sort of looking around saying, let's have a little discussion on that. They won't be going back in the same truck, I don't think.
Well, Ryan wants to talk to him about it. Tell him, hey, here's where I was, here where you were. And he doesn't want to listen to it. Well, this could be good if they both get in the same car.
I can't believe they're doing that.
Better keep the helmets on, boys. Well, Marias crashed out last week at Iowa, his 3rd crash this year. And for Ryan Hunter-Reay, it's his 2nd crash. He had that incident, of course, with Marco back at Texas late in the race there. A lot of damage to both cars.
We asked ourselves maybe why did they go ahead and repair Ed Carpenter's car when it had damage? He was out so early. This is the reason why. You get back out here, you start to knock off some laps, and Ed Carpenter now is up to 17th spot. Quite a few laps behind, but as the race continues on here, he might find himself gaining some valuable points towards moving himself up in the points championship.
Yeah, he's 51 laps down. Vince, you've got more?
Well, and Scott, you're exactly right. And they're talking with Ed on the radio, almost constantly talking with him after a yellow flag or after an incident, updating him on how that affects him in the points. So you're exactly right. They put him out there knowing that there would likely be further attrition and that he could gain on the points, even though his car is damaged. Marty.
And we see that Scott Dixon is peeled off, and he is going to come in. Jack?
And this is the second time in for Scott Dixon during the last 2 cautions. Why? Because the radar is showing rain 30 minutes out. They expect Dixon. They wanted to put some fuel in this. And Mike Hull has actually talked his driver through the expectation that this race will not go the advertised distance. So they're going to throw all this fuel strategy out the windows, guys. Give him as much as he's got, pack it in. And now they're going to give him the green light to try and make up as much ground as he can before the Thunder Boomers descend here.
Well, that's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I mean, we are at the halfway mark right now. We're working lap 150 of 300. And Brienne has caught up with Graham Rahal.
That's right, Marty. Graham, can you tell us, was there any indication from the driver's seat what happened?
No, I mean, nothing. I mean, my car, literally my car the whole race has been pushing like a pig. And it's just one of those things, you know. I mean, we were struggling to stay up there. We were conserving a lot of fuel. But I got down, you know, in the middle of 3 and 4 that time, and the back end just went. And the trouble with these cars is when they go, you just can't catch them. And unfortunately, this day has just turned into a demolition derby, and I didn't want to be one of them, but here I am.
Let's take a look at this replay and see if you can see anything else.
I mean, you can see it right there. It just goes, and you know, fortunately, it wasn't too hard of a hit, but I don't know. I have to see. I don't think I touched the apron, but I might have, and it's just unfortunate.
Now that is the car that you will be racing next week in Watkins Glen. What does that mean for your team?
Well, I mean, I feel bad for the guys, and I said at the start of the race that you know, we had a horrible weekend going here. The guys had worked so hard. We had finally got a competitive car, competitive enough to qualify 3rd. But unfortunately, it's going to be another hard day's work, I think, for these guys, and we'll just try to treat them with a win next weekend.
Let's check in with Jack Arute.
Yeah, Brienne, we were talking before this last caution about Helio Castroneves and the changes they made on the car. They added some front wing. They've reduced the air temperature, the air pressure on the right side. Now, what are they trying to do? The other thing that this team is doing, Tim Cindric is using his spotter upstairs, and they're using feedback from Helio Castroneves as to the marbles, the small little pieces of the tire that scrub off to the high side. That is determining for Helio just how high he can go on the racetrack, specifically on restarts. They were very excited a couple of cautions ago when they brought the sweeper out. He actually began to almost hum a tune. The big key for Helio Castroneves with this car right now, they're set up to try and make a charge to the front on the high side, guys.
Well, this is going to be interesting to see how it unfolds, because let's talk about pit strategy. Marco Andretti is now 81 laps since his last pit stop as the race leader. EJ Vizo, he pitted 69 laps ago. He's in 2nd. Then you get in a group of 3. Tony Kanaan, Helio Castroneves, and Jamie Kamara, they pitted just 16 laps ago. Vince?
Well, I'm talking about strategy with Marco Andretti, and we just spoke with Ziggy Harkis a few moments ago, and he said they believe they can do it on one more stop. At that time, they had their targeted pit stop lap at 195, which is, what, 42 laps from now. Obviously, the more laps you run under yellow, the further you can stretch that. Still going to make one more stop, but it's a matter of how much fuel do you need to get to the end, how many more yellow laps do you get, all of that coming into play. And well, the way this race has unfolded, you get the feeling we're going to have some more yellow laps. Brienne?
Well, Vince, I've caught up with Ryan Hunter-Reay. First question, what was the exchange between you and Mario?
Well, I don't even know what happened. I just felt a big hit from the left rear. So I asked him, I said, what happened? He said he was beside me. And then I come in and my team says, no, he was nowhere near beside me. So I'm waiting till I see it. We had a pretty busy race car out there. I was holding my breath the whole time trying to keep it off the wall. We were going to salvage something tonight, and we didn't get to do that. So, you know, when we're in survival mode, even we get into trouble. So it's unfortunate. I think we could have come out of here today with a decent result and up in the points. But it is what it is at the moment. I'm having a great time racing these cars. I want to have some great results. I know we can do it.
Well, we have that replay for you. Let's give you a chance to take a look at it. Tell us if you see anything.
Well, I mean, I don't know. At the last moment, I heard inside, and by that point, I was hit. So I don't know. it's short track racing. It's unfortunate. I don't know. It's have to go on to Watkins Glen. Hopefully we can get them there.
A hot and disappointing night for Ryan Hunter-Reay, guys.
All right, thank you, Brienne. Let's talk a little bit about, as you see the remains of the car going back into the garage area, about Marco Andretti. He's now led 5 races in a row, starting back with Indy, plus Homestead. He's led the 3rd most laps of all the drivers behind Scott Dixon and Helio Castroneves. But obviously, as we talked in the pre-race, he is still looking for victory number 1 this year. If this holds up, he would pick up 3 positions in the points and move into the top 5, and he would get that first win.
And most importantly, a lot of confidence boost going to a racetrack that he knows that he can race very well at Watkins Glen. And a lot of these drivers with road course backgrounds right now are looking forward to the second half of the season because they have a lot of road courses coming up, and they know they can gain valuable points and work themselves further up in the championship.
Let's point out 2 other things as we get ready to go to break. Darren Manning is also back out on the track. We talked about Ed Carpenter. He's already picked up 6 positions since he returned to the track. He's 17th. Darren Manning has also come back up. He is now running 18th on the track. So Marco Andretti continues under yellow here, our 8th of the night, as it's a dogfight and a brawl for that matter in Richmond.
Mr. Saturday night special.
Back here at Richmond International Raceway, you saw on side-by-side 3 cars decided to come in and pit, including Danica Patrick, Hideki Muto, and Scott Dixon. And Jack, what's going on with Dixon? He was just in.
Fellas, he was just in, and what they wanted to do, because the sun has set, they wanted to set this car for the final setup for the final run. Don't expect the target car to be back on pit road. They are A, gambling that rain will descend within the next 30 minutes. B, that they have plenty of fuel now, even if the rain doesn't come, to complete this race without coming back on pit road. So Mike Hull explained it to his driver. They determined that they wanted to take a little bit of front wing out. What they did is they took 1 full turn out, and now he's given the green light to try and work his way from the back to the front.
And remember, we are past halfway, so this race is official if the rain does move in. All right, it has been, as we said, heading to the break, a real dogfight and a brawl, and it's been an awfully expensive night. Here was the start where Ryan Hunter-Reay didn't crash there. That'll come later. That is, of course, the 8 car Will Power. Then A.J. Foyt, the 4th, hit the wall, and then we had another spin, and that's Buddy Rice making contact, and there was a big pileup even further back behind him as about 4 cars got involved into it. And then there was Vitor and John Andretti. And this was Graham Rahal as he hit the wall. And the most recent incident, Marias in the 19, getting into the 17 of Ryan Hunter-Reay. 8 total cautions. Here are those that have been involved. And the list is long. A lot of work going to be done by the crews, Scott.
As we mentioned, this is the 2nd of 6 races in a row. I always feel for the crews because they're working hard here this weekend in this heat. They'll go back to Indianapolis, rebuild these cars to get ready for Watkins Glen the following weekend.
136 laps to go this time by. Marco Andretti is on point. E.J. Vizo is 2nd. Tony Kanaan 3rd. Helio Castroneves, Jamie Kamara. And here goes Kanaan looking underneath Vizo. And he takes it. Move Tony to 2nd. Best battle on the racetrack right there, the battle for 3rd. Vizo, he's got the high line. Underneath him goes the 3 of Helio Castroneves. Castroneves, oh, and they do touch. Jamie Kamara makes a nice save. So does Vizo. We almost had caution number 9.
That's the young and the brave at work right there, not taking their foot off the throttle. Remember, we still got a fair amount of time to go, but because passing is so difficult here and track position is so prominent for the end of the race, and these guys are still at it, they won't give up anything at all.
Kamara gets around him on the high side. Vizo gives him enough room to clear. Here, you're on board now. That is Dan Wheldon. There's Oriol Servia. He's got to back off. You can't go 3 wide into 1. We already found that out. Servia, he's running 5th. Vizo's 6th. Wheldon is 7th. And now you're on board with Dixon, who's 8th.
Dixon's picked up speed very quickly here. A couple of adjustments to the car as reported, and also some fresh tires a couple of pit stops ago. So for him, he's just trying to march towards the front.
Back on board with Dixon. Why don't we just ride along for a bit? Take a look at the Firestone telemetry.
And they mentioned this is a driver's track because you can see full throttle right now, back down into the turn. Gear shift down.
You're clear.
Spotters come into play right now, letting him know what's going on. There's no time for resting at this racetrack. You're turning about 75% of the time throughout an individual lap.
That is E.J. Vizo right in front of him by 0.4 of a second. That's what it looks like from the outside. Justin Wilson right behind in the 0-2. And there he is with a top 10 run going, as he's now 9th, and Townsend Bell rounds out the top 10. In fact, 6 of our top 11 cars running right now are first timers here at Richmond. Remember, we told you at the beginning of the broadcast that 14 of the 26 starters were first timers. Oriol Servia, of course, boy, did he have a run back in Milwaukee or what, when he ended up falling all the way back into the field and then fought his way back to 6th. Let's get more from Vince Welch.
Well, and Marty, this is a big race for Oriol Servia and the KV squad, because they had that race last weekend at Iowa where he was 16th with a mechanical failure, and that followed a DNF at Texas. So this was a big bounce back opportunity, and Oriol Servia is taking advantage of it. He may be new to the series, but he's not new to oval racing. This is his 34th oval event, and Jimmy Vasser and Oriol Servia have been talking on the radio about mapping out their fuel strategy. They believe they too can make one more stop and make it to the end, and Servia has been turning off some very fast laps. An impressive performance by him and this team tonight.
You saw the graphic that explained his first 3 and last 3 races, as right now he continues in 5th, about 0.2 of a second ahead of Dan Wheldon, and that's what 0.2 looks like from on board Dan's car.
And you saw Dan, just a flick of the steering wheel there. Cars wanted to step out a little bit on him, but fast hands, fast reactions.
Jack, you've got more on Dan?
Yeah, Dan Wheldon was a very busy boy this week, not only preparing to come here, but answering his telephone that was ringing off the hook in St. Petersburg, Florida. Remember, he donated his entire winnings from the from the Iowa race 1 week ago. Who was on the phone? Just average Americans that called him to thank him, that call Iowa home.
It was a great week all the way around, and it was a great gesture by the Target Ganassi duo. Whoa!
Another one.
Man, has he got that thing loose.
And that happens because you don't want to let up off the gas and the accelerator when you're coming out of the turn. So you continue to squeeze it, try to force the issue, try to get it right to over the edge, and that's exactly what he's doing.
Take a look. This was the win last week. Remember, he kept staying out, and it paid off. He went 90 laps on that last load, held off Hideki Muto and Marco Andretti as they finished 2nd and 3rd, as Dan picked up his 2nd win of 2008. While all this is going on, we can tell you that Ryan Briscoe has come back out onto the track. He is 99 laps down, and he is in 21st position. But again, there's a lot of cars that have crashed out. He could pick up, theoretically, at least 3 more positions. So as he continues, Marco Andretti continues to run the roost up front. Marco has led 68 laps now. He's one of 3 different leaders, and he's got a 0.6 of a second lead over Tony Kanaan. Back here at Richmond, you look at race leader Marco Andretti. It's been 118 laps since he pitted, so he's going to be looking somewhere down the road. Let's talk a little bit about what's going to happen tomorrow on ESPN2. We'll kick it off with NASCAR Now at 10 a.m. Eastern, and NHRA Race Day will follow at 11 a.m. And then the finals from NHRA action at Norwalk at 7 p.m. Eastern. Then on Monday night, catch NASCAR Now at 6 o'clock. All of it on ESPN2. In case you're just tuning in, let's get you up to speed with the front runners and start off with Marco Andretti and Vince Welch.
Well, Marco Andretti is about 10 laps away from his next needed pit stop. Marco is 8th in points, and he told me tonight the key: win races. We know we don't have a shot at the championship. Let's just win races. That would be the best reward for the crew, and he is out in front, certainly doing his share tonight, and his team has done a great job in the setup of his race car. Behind him is his teammate, Tony Kanaan. Kanaan, as George Klotz told me earlier tonight, track position is key. You can't get much better track position than following your teammate in second place. Kanaan, riding around comfortably, says the balance is good. Jack Arute?
He may have started Vince Welch in 18th position, but he has picked off 15 spots, battling a car that first was understeering, then it began to oversteer by using the outside on restarts. Helio Castroneves, Brian Pedigo, has moved into third.
Nakarut, the owner of Jamie Kamara's car, Eric Bachelard, says life is good right now. His driver is happy with his car. He last pitted around lap 136. No changes have been made. Vince Welch?
Oriol Servia having a good run, as we noted just a short while ago. Servia told me he loves this racetrack. He says because it's fun. You're always on the edge, and you've got to be on your toes every moment on these short tracks. He says that's what makes it exciting in the cockpit. Jack Arute?
It's been a quiet night for Dan Wheldon, winner 1 week ago, but not quiet in the cockpit. You've ridden on board when he's had several big-time twitches with the race car. Wheldon's car has been loose since the outset, but he finds himself in 6th position, Brianne.
Right behind him in 7th is EJ Viso. Is trying to stretch his fuel as much as he can. Earlier in the race, he was complaining with a lack of grip. They did make an air pressure adjustment and fix that. Back to you, Jack.
Meanwhile, we've documented Scott Dixon and Mike Hull's gamble that this race will not go the distance, making a wing adjustment just before we went back to green, having suffered through an uncharacteristic bit miscue 2 pit stops prior. But now Scott Dixon at full rich is trying to chase down people in front of him. Brianne Pedigo.
Justin Wilson last pitted at lap 136, happy with his race car. Today is the first race that his wife and new baby are here since they were born earlier in the season. So looking for a win not only for himself but for his family. Right behind him, Townsend Bell. These two have been playing a bit of cat and mouse all night long. Townsend was complaining of a bit of understeer. He did not pit when everyone else did around 136. So keep an eye out for Townsend Bell. Vince?
Well, and behind is Hideki Muto, as you see him trying to hold off his teammate Danica Patrick. Muto coming off that impressive performance a week ago where he was 7th at Iowa. 5 top 10s this year. He's on pace to be the Rookie of the Year. He was the fastest rookie qualifier at Indianapolis, and he is having another good run here tonight, threatening to be in the top 10. Behind him is Danica Patrick. Danica has been handling her car, which has been giving her some issues with understeer, but otherwise, she says it's okay. She feels as though she's fast enough to pass Hideki, but just can't quite get the move made. Marty?
Well, she might want to think about getting the move made, because look right behind her. Here comes the race leaders, her teammates, Marco Andretti and Tony Kanaan. 12 cars on the lead lap. Danica is the next in line to go a lap down if Marco can get up to her. We should also point out that Ed Carpenter is now up to 13th. He's 52 laps down, but getting the car fixed has paid off. Also for Darren Manning, he's up to 16th, 63 laps down. Ryan Briscoe is 19th. Those are the 3 other cars that are still out running on the track. And meanwhile, that gap seems to be about the same as the last few laps, like Marco just can't quite get up to her.
And for certain, Danica Patrick knows that Marco is coming up behind her, not only by looking in her mirrors, but also from her spotters telling her right now that the leader is coming, the leader is coming. The leader just happens to be her teammate, Marco Andretti.
It has been 134 laps since he pitted, and yes, here comes the race leader as Marco Andretti peels off and heads for pit lane, which this will definitely be his last pit stop with 95 laps to go. Vince, he's heading your way.
Well, they do believe that this will be their last stop, and this is a team also keeping an eye on the weather as well. They believe it is threatening. Jason Weatherford on the outside front as the crew goes to work on the tires, fuel, and Firestones. No chassis adjustment, a little issue on the left front, but Andretti gets it full of fuel and off.
So he'll pull back out onto the racetrack, and the worst thing that could happen to him right now would be a yellow to come out. Meanwhile, there's your new race leader. For the second time tonight, Tony Kanaan is back in front. He pitted 71 laps ago. So did the man in second, third, and fourth. Castroneves, Kamara, and Serbia. And we'll be back with a lot more as Tony Kanaan looks for win number 1 of the season here at Richmond. Back here at Richmond International Raceway, we can tell you E.J. Viso peeled off from 6th, and he's in the pits, Brienne.
Tires, fuel, and 1 turn of front wing for E.J. Viso. What a clean stop for the 33 car, who typically has an Achilles heel of pit stops, guys.
And he'll go 1 lap down. Marco Andretti went 1 lap down before the break when he pitted. Andretti's 11th, Viso now 12th. There's the race leader, Tony Kanaan. It's been 79 laps since his last pit stop. And right in front of him is Danica Patrick, the last car on the lead lap. And she's in 10th.
Danica Patrick and Hideki Muto both seem like they have picked up the pace once they heard that the leaders were behind them. They all seem to be running about the same pace right now, about 147.5 to 148 miles an hour.
Well, those two, we've got yellow on the racetrack. Our record-tying 9th yellow, as there is Jamie Kamara into the wall. So what was a great night going, he was running 3rd, all of a sudden is into the wall right here just past the finish line. So a tough way to end what was a very promising night for the rookie from Conquest Racing, and he is just dejected. And can you blame him?
He's done a lot for his career tonight, showing that he can run up front and run the leader's speed. As you see now, we'll watch coming out of turns 3 and 4. The back end just gets loose from him, and that seems to be about identical type of crash his teammate did in practice yesterday. The car just got loose in the same spot, went up and rubbed against the wall in the very same fashion.
Remember, he started 24th, got all the way up to the race lead. In fact, he led a total of 44 laps. The first time he had ever led an IndyCar event, was running 3rd when he lost it coming out of 4. But he's not been alone in that department, as you pointed out, Scott. Pit lane is open. Now what happens? Remember, Marco Andretti is a lap down. E.J. Viso is down, and here comes the race leaders. Vince, they're heading your way.
Tony Kanaan has yet to win a race this season. He's 4th in the championship points, 100 out of the lead. He knows that if he has a chance at winning the championship, he needs a win tonight. There will be no chassis adjustments, just tire and fuel to get Kanaan to the end. Castroneves in the middle. Oral Servio is having a great night as well, although complaining of a loose race car. So they make a change on the front wing of Servia, but no other changes to Castroneves or Tony Kanaan. And Kanaan, it looks like, just beats Castroneves to the line.
You saw a great view on the ethanol triple pits. As you can see, the race off pit road, it was Kanaan in front of Castroneves. Wheldon picks up 1, Servia drops 1, and oh no, trouble for Hideki Muto. And it looks like he is out of the race. The steering wheel has come off, so the man who finished a career best 2nd last week at Iowa is out of this one. And there you can see why the leader is now Tony Kanaan. Well, back here at Richmond International Raceway, take a look at the most DNFs this season. And currently we have 13 drivers out of the race here, which is the new leader in the clubhouse, unfortunately. And we've actually run like 98 laps of 300 under caution. We've tied for the most cautions. The record is 9. That's where we're at right now. And it looks like, according to IndyCar scoring, when the wave around happens, you'll see that Marco Andretti is right behind the pace car. He is on the tail end of the lead lap, according to IndyCar officials. EJ Viso, though, is 1 full lap down still. So Viso will not be at the tail end of the lead lap, but Marco will. So as we go back to our race leader and take a look at the race off pit road and just how close it was between Tony Kanaan and Helio Castroneves and Jack Arute, they're both looking for their first wins of this year.
And let me explain to you why it was that close, guys. Helio Castroneves, led by Tim Cindric, decided not to take the full 22 gallons of ethanol on board. That was a timed, what they call short stop. They changed the tires, but they also put in just enough fuel to go the full distance. As soon as it was done, that man there, Tim Cindric, pulled out his cell phone. I didn't see the number, but I know most likely who he called, the captain, to let him know. Vince Welch?
Well, and Hideki Muto is out of the race car, and he is done for the night. Drive shaft was what claimed Muto in this AGR team effort tonight. And I talked with Kim Green a moment ago, who put his arm around Hideki and had some words of encouragement. And it has been an impressive performance this season by the driver from Japan. Sometimes I think maybe Scott Goodyear, maybe the greatest compliment to Hideki Muto is that we often forget he's a rookie.
Not only a rookie, but just a young driver. And I'll tell you something, for a guy that doesn't have much experience in a big car, he's done a great job this year. You'll see some sparks come out from the back of the car, and as soon as the half shaft breaks, it's just flailing around down there. And the driver knows he's not going anywhere, and the team knows that the car is done for the night.
All right, the wave by has happened, and Marco Andretti is at the tail end of the lead lap now. So it is Tony Kanaan, Helio Castroneves, Dan Wheldon, Oriol Servia, Scott Dixon. That's your top 5, with Justin Wilson, Danica Patrick, Townsend Bell, Marco Andretti. That's your top 9, the only 9 cars on the lead lap. With 72 to go, here we go. And look at Dixon trying to go underneath Servia. And he gets it done. So move Dixon to 4th. And he's looking at his teammate Dan Wheldon. The top 4 have sort of checked out from everybody else now. Closest battle is right there. Dixon trying to reel in Wheldon.
And the guy that's working very hard to get himself up there, as we watch the Firestone telemetry, is Marco Andretti, who was at the tail end of that lead lap on the restart. So he's now got to get across quite a few people that are in front of him. He had a great battle going on at the start. Have that restart with Townsend Bell, who's just up ahead, and he just can't seem to get past him. And if he doesn't, those leaders are going to turn around as we watch Marco right there in the blockbuster machine, just driving his heart out right now. Got to move forward.
Well, Jamie Kamara is out of the medical center. Brianne Pettigo has caught up with him.
Marty, what a run it was for Jamie Kamara and Conquest Racing. Jamie, what went wrong?
The tire wear is pretty abrupt here, and the fuel load, you know, the car was getting lighter and lighter, so I was neutral every lap, more neutral, and I was trying with all with my tools inside the car to maintain the car, you know, to the next pit stop, but I lost it on the exit of turn 4, and it's just a shame because we had a chance of a very good result. We were really fast at the track, and feel sorry for the guys.
You led your first laps in an IndyCar race tonight, running with the leaders. Tell me how that felt.
That felt great. I mean, it shows that we're gaining momentum, and it's just good for the team. You know, I just wish I could finish this race and give them a good result.
As disappointing as this finish is, guys, I spoke with owner Eric Bachelart, and they are just impressed with his run and looking forward to the rest of the season.
And next stop, of course, the road course up at Watkins Glen next week. As you can see, things are getting a little tighter between 2nd and 3rd. Castroneves and Dan Wheldon, and that's Wheldon's view back to 4th, and then we come right around to take a look at 2nd place, Helio Castroneves. You heard Brianne talk about Jamie Kamara being one of our Firestone lap leaders. He led 44 laps here tonight. Tony Kanaan is at 102 and counting, and Marco Andretti, the 3rd member of that group. And right now, Kanaan has opened up a 1.4-second lead over Castroneves. That's the biggest lead we have seen all night long.
You know, he's running speeds right now about 2 miles an hour faster on average than the drivers that are in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. And sometimes it does fluctuate, but he's had as much as 2. It's been very impressive.
Well, Tony Kanaan is one of the guys that he really does enjoy these night races under the lights.
Everything is different at night, you know, like we used to. You can see the skies when you're racing, so you used to see blue all the time, then you see black, and you see lights, reflection. Some cars have those reflectors on the sponsorships, and then it's just totally different. I think it's really nice. I kind of enjoy it a lot. And for us as drivers, especially places like Texas, Richmond, they're so hot during the day. I mean, I love that those races are at night. And you get to sleep in.
And he slept in a hotel this week because, as you were with us earlier, we found out that his motorhome had a problem, no air conditioning. So he moved out of the area here at the track and moved into the hotel. Right now, Tony Kanaan in control of this race. How about Andretti Green? It has been a big difference from 07 to 08. They did well in the polls so far this year, done well in laps led. But the win column, that's the one that stands out.
That's the one that pays the prize money, that pays the points towards a championship at the end. Remember, they struggled a couple of years ago right at the ship. Started to have very strong seasons. Won the championship last year with Dario Franchitti, but maybe not as strong as they wanted to earlier this year. Vince Welch?
Well, and Tony Kanaan told me earlier this weekend that he said, you know, when you're at a team like Andretti Green, they expect you to win every week, and when you don't, it seems like a disappointment. But he said, we've not been as bad as the results have sometimes indicated. We haven't caught some breaks like we maybe have in the past. But George Klotz, who handles the strategy for Kanaan, told me tonight, we need a victory tonight if we're going to make a run at the championship. It would be huge. He said, and everybody on the team feels it. But like that baseball pitcher that's got the no-hitter going and he comes to the dugout and nobody talks to him, nobody's talking about how much they need to win tonight, but everybody knows how badly they need it.
Well, let's give you one statistic that really stands out here at Richmond. There have been 7 prior races. 4 times in those 7 races, the winner of this event at Richmond has gone on to win the championship. So, who knows? Maybe tonight, Tony Kanaan takes that giant leap forward towards not only his first win, but maybe a championship. You're looking at race leader Tony Kanaan. He's got 47 to go to get his first win, and next week will be on ABC on Sunday for the Camping World IndyCar Grand Prix at the Glen. It's Sunday afternoon, 3:30 Eastern on ABC. Back here at Richmond International Raceway, it has been a slugfest tonight, and the wall has won a lot more of the battles than the race cars. In fact, the wall's won all of them as far as the contact level has been concerned. We've had 9 cautions for 102 laps of this 300-lap event. Right now, things have settled down. I say that very precariously. Tony Kanaan has a 3-second lead, the largest lead of the night over that man right there, Elio Castroneves. Right behind Castroneves is Dan Wheldon in 3rd. Scott Dixon, our points leader, is currently running in the 4th position, 4.2 seconds behind the race lead. Then we get to Oriol Servia, the first of our 14 first-timers. And whoa, all of a sudden, I see a slow car out there. Is that Ryan Briscoe still making the laps?
I think what he's doing is still making laps, just letting cars pass on the outside, being very gentlemanly. We haven't seen much of that tonight, have we?
Well, Briscoe is one of those 3 cars that had problems, had contact, and got back into the race, and it's paid dividends for those guys. Ed Carpenter is 13th, 52 laps down. Darren Manning is 14th, 63 down, and Briscoe's 15th. And they would have been a lot worse off had they not gotten back. All right, let's pick it back up with Oriol Servia because he's the first of our 14 first-timers here at Richmond. He's got the best run going in 5th position. As you can see there, his best finish was back at Milwaukee when he finished 6th. And right behind him is Danica Patrick, about a half a second behind in 7th or 6th position. Then it's Justin Wilson in 7th, another one of our first-timers, as is Townsend Bell in 8th. And Marco Andretti rounds out the 9 cars that are on the lead lap. And there is Marco trying to reel in Townsend Bell. And here comes Marco looking to make a move to the inside. Doesn't have enough run on Townsend yet. This is really the closest battle we have going on the racetrack now. And this is the first time all night as Ryan Briscoe is coming back into pit lane. You know, we checked the radar up here in the race control, and the rain looks like it may move to the north of us. Jack, what's the report you're getting?
Well, Marty, that's exactly the case. The rain that everybody thought was going to descend right about now is skirted just to the north. So now all of a sudden Mike Hull has adjusted his strategy and his tactics, assuming that this race is going to go the remaining 39 laps. He is pushing his driver hard, but reminding him that the points, as he told us 1 week ago, are so valuable and so important. Meanwhile, Dan Wheldon is going to try and chase down Helio Castroneves. We're going to see a battle for second very shortly, guys.
I want to go to you, Scott. What would you be thinking in your head when your guy said, okay, we're going to play the rain game, and then all of a sudden he says, oh, sorry, get on the gas and go?
Yeah, sometimes you think about, like, okay, you come out and drive this thing. But I was watching Dan Wheldon a little bit earlier. I don't think he still has a perfect race car. He seems like he's still struggling with it just a little bit. Every time he gets up close to the back of Helio Castroneves, looks like he has to really work that steering wheel to keep the car on track. So he's got to find a fine line there. Do I make the charge and try to pass, as we see him flicking the wheel once again, and try to make a position change here, or do I just sit back and take third place points?
Right on board with Dan. Boy, every time coming out. That's Ed Carpenter. Remember, he was as low as 23rd. We pointed out he's worked his way back up to 13th to score as many points as he could. But as we go back up front, the lead has come back to 3.2 seconds. Tony Kanaan, right there is your race leader. His 4-second lead has dwindled. The man in first and second are looking for their first wins of the year. Does Helio Castroneves get it, or is it Tony Kanaan? ESPN's presentation of the IndyCar 300 at Richmond, brought to you by Firestone, the first name in Indy racing. The look of anticipation and anxiety on one of the crew members for Marco Andretti. And Tony Kanaan out in front of this race by 4.5 seconds. All of a sudden, it has opened up again over Helio Castroneves. And forgive us if we flash back to the first race of the season, because it was about this stage we thought TK had the race in hand. And then,
bang, car goes off in front of him. He ends up clipping the right front corner, damaged the car too much to continue. He was in cruise mode at that point in time. It looked like he was going to head towards his first victory of the year. But it's all the way here till Richmond before he has another shot, Marty.
And he ended up 8th that night. Let's get an update on him. Right now, he's in cruise control, Vince.
Well, and Kanaan, he, of course, led 71 laps at Iowa last week before he lost control of his car and crashed. So I guarantee you that he's not counting on this one in the win column just yet. Kanaan won 5 times last season. He hasn't won since Belle Isle of 07, so he's not won a race all year long, but that's how it can be. It can be from a dominating season like a year ago in which he won 5 times, although he still didn't win the championship, to a year like this one where they've had their opportunities but just haven't been able to finish the job. This would be a huge victory for this team tonight, not only for the 7-Eleven driver and crew, but for the entire AGR team. This team is stretched very thin. They need a good shot in the arm that a win like this would give them tonight.
Well, I'm wondering if something's going on in second place Helio Castroneves' car, because look at this gap. It is now up to 6.1 seconds. Now, it's been 57 laps since these front runners have pitted, and we have 23 laps to go. I'm wondering if anybody is seeing maybe a fuel issue in the offing. Dan Wheldon also is behind in third, another 0.6 of a second back. Then fourth place is Scott Dixon. Oriol Serby is fifth. Danica Patrick still 6th. Justin Wilson 7th. Townsend Bell 8th. And Marco Andretti, our last car, in 9th. And whoa, look at Dixon. That was just a few moments ago.
You have to think about points when you're the points leader right now. If Tony Kanaan is going to win, Tony Kanaan is going to gain about 21 points on Dixon if they end up finishing where they're running right now.
Jack, any word on fuel situation down there?
Yeah, I mean, to be quite frank with you guys, second and third and fourth. So we've got the target cars and Helio Castroneves all are running full rich, so that's not the case. Really what the case is it's total domination right now by the 7-Eleven car of Helio Castroneves. All three cars have plenty of fuel to go the distance, and they've been given the green light. There has been no fuel conservation underway, just domination by that guy.
All right, yeah, thanks for bringing us up to date, Jack. And, you know, that's a tip of the hat to the 7-Eleven crew. They got the last pit stop spot on, and you can see that here comes TK closing on Marco Andretti.
And who would have thought that? He moves over very nicely to allow his teammate to go through.
So Marco Andretti is now a lap down. That means 8 cars on the lead lap, and Tony Kanaan could be looking at victory number 1 of the season. If he does win, well, you can chat with him tomorrow. All you got to do is log on to ESPN.com, go to search and type in Indy Chat at 4:45 p.m. tomorrow afternoon to chat with the winner of the IndyCar 300 here at Richmond tonight. And maybe it will be that man right there, although I certainly don't want to jinx him, because Lord knows he's had enough bad fortune late in the race this year, as we documented at Homestead. His lead is 5 seconds over second place right now, come back down a little bit from the 6.1 that it was a few laps ago. And there's the gap back to Helio Castroneves. Castroneves likewise looking for his first win of this season. In fact, he's in the longest drought of his IndyCar career.
St. Petersburg last year, which is some 23 races, and this would make it the 24th race. Certainly a long streak for Helio Castroneves and Team Penske. But I think this has to be looked as a victory to him. When you think about where he qualified and how the car seemed to unload off the trailer, he didn't seem very hopeful at any time yesterday or this morning. So some changes they've done to the car for race time seem to have worked and improved, and give the team credit for getting a car underneath them that's become much better throughout the race.
Yeah, you get a quick glimpse of Dan Wheldon running in third there ahead of his teammate Scott Dixon. And as we drift a little bit further back in the field, we ought to give a shout out to Townsend Bell. He is the last car on the lead lap in the 23. There he is. His best finishes this year have been 10th twice. That was back at Motegi, Japan, and then also at the Indianapolis 500. But right now, he is running 8th, although he is in jeopardy of going a lap down, because right behind him, there he is, the race leader, Tony Kanaan.
You think about how Marco seemed to run so strong at the front and seemed to be able to walk away when he wanted when he was leading this event. And for whatever reason, that car seems to be off for him right now. And you mentioned he got lapped by his teammate, Tony Kanaan, who's the leader. Now, he seems to be running a little bit on pace with Tony once Tony has passed, but frustrating for a driver when you've had something that you think is capable of winning a race event. And then he got shuffled through the pit stops. Remember, he had a green flag pit stop. It didn't work out for him. He ended up on the tail into the lead lap and just doesn't seem to be back on pace since then.
Well, we talked about it earlier. He's led 90 laps tonight. He is the 3rd highest lap leader this year of all the drivers, and yet has no victories to show for it. And as you point out, he's 1 lap down right now with 9 laps to go, now 8 to go here at Richmond International Raceway. The gap back to second place, that it is about almost a full straightaway.
Well, and Tony knows exactly where Helio Castroneves is, and he knows that he has Marco Andretti behind him, and he's probably not going to push the issue with Townsend Bell up in front, because with only 8 laps left to go now, 7 laps as we're looking at the counter, he's probably seeing the situation, I'll just sit back here and coast.
And our statistician Russ Thompson just informed me that Marco Andretti, with those 90 laps, is now 2nd on laps led list instead of 3rd, and right behind Scott Dixon, as Dixon, for the 2nd race in a row, will not lead a lap. So not the kind of night that they were looking for. He started 4th. As we'll remind you, we're running a little bit past our time. Baseball tonight will be coming up next right here on ESPN. Right now for Tony Kanaan, he's looking at 4 laps to go next time by the stripe, and his lead comfortably at 4.2 seconds.
4.2, 4 to go.
Didn't I just say that?
I think he was listening to you.
Helio Castroneves there in second place. He has got almost a 2-second lead over Dan Wheldon. So after a chaotic first 3/4 of the race, with 3 laps to go now, this race has really settled down and Tony Kanaan in total control.
Tony will remain 4th in points, but he does gain 21. He's 79 behind now versus 100 coming in, and Dixon will lose about 8 points to Castroneves, with Castroneves staying in 2nd right now. So we mentioned that Dixon does not lead a lap, and he's still going to lead the championship with a 40-point margin. Is still a pretty hefty one, especially going into Watkins Glen, which I think he likes.
Yeah, he's won there like, what, 2 times in a row. White flag is out. One more lap for Tony Kanaan. It will be his first win of 2008 as he completes this one more lap of this 3/4-mile bull ring at Richmond International Raceway. It'll be the 2nd win for Andretti Green Racing this year. And here he comes around to take the checkered flag for the 13th time in his career. Tony Kanaan, your winner by 4 seconds over Elio Castroneves. Michael Andretti, more of a sigh of relief more than celebration there. There is Castroneves. 3rd place is Scott Dixon, got around Dan Wheldon. And Brianne Pettigo has caught up with Michael Andretti.
Michael, before Iowa, you had a team meeting getting everyone on the same page. How does this win affect your team?
Oh, it's great. You know, I think we came out here the last 2 races really strong, and it has to do with those guys working together, and they've done a really good job. And you know, this race, Tony did a great job. I feel bad for Marco. I think he had a really good car too, but you know, at least we got a win. I'm happy for 7-Eleven and Tony. You know, it's been a tough stretch here, bad luck for him, so I'm glad he finally broke it.
Go out there and celebrate with your driver.
All right, so we'll get a chance to talk to the man in victory lane as there he heads for the winner's circle as the fireworks in the background and the crowd begins to file out at Richmond. And you're looking at a very happy Tony Kanaan as he climbs from the cockpit, and we'll send it to Vince Welch.
Tony Kanaan, after winning 5 times a year ago, they had talked about the need for this victory as far as getting back in the championship chase, and you got it tonight. What kind of shot in the arm is this win for this team?
I mean, it's great. I feel bad about Marco. I think he had as strong a car as I had, but you know what? We did it. I want to dedicate the first win to my son. I mean, he's not here. My family, then you're home. We'll celebrate when we get there next week. But and to Robert Clark, you know, he's retiring, and he did a lot for me, the guys from HPD. So we've done it. We turned the situation around, so we're in the row now.
A quick turnaround from a week ago when you crashed after leading 71 laps. You come back, you win today. What's it say about this team that it has continued to persevere and stay in the hunt despite some disappointing finishes along the way?
Well, it's the strength that we have. I mean, we don't stop working. We don't let ourselves down. I think sometimes, including myself, when we have a bad week, and that's when I wake up and I go, I got to do better. I mean, Saturday I had the biggest hit of my life in Iowa. Sunday afternoon I ran an hour, and then just because I was so frustrated with me, with a lot of pain. But I think that you know, shows the strength that this team has, and very, very happy right now.
You came into this race 4th in the points, 100 behind the leader Scott Dixon. What does this win do in regards to the championship chase as we continue on this difficult stretch now going to Watkins Glen next week?
We're coming. We're coming. That's all I can say. I mean, Scott knows I respect him a lot. He's doing the job that he needs to do. He's finishing, making points, but we're going to chase. We're definitely going to chase.
Tony Kanaan, the charge is on.
All right, as they continue to celebrate, let's take a look at the points, because Tony picks up 18 markers on points leader Scott Dixon. Now, Dixon got around Dan Wheldon right at the stripe. Wheldon's car never made it all the way back to the pit area. He's just got to pit in and is walking back. So we don't know whether he ran out of fuel or had a mechanical, but that's what happened, why Dixon ended up 3rd and Wheldon 4th. So you can see exactly what the points shake out to. This is getting interesting as we head to Watkins Glen.
It's going to be great for Watkins Glen. Dixon's won there 3 times in a row, so road course specialists are going to be there in full force. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, don't forget, next Sunday at 3:30 Eastern on ABC, we'll be on the air with Camping World IndyCar Grand Prix at Watkins Glen. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. Coming up next, we've got baseball tonight. Congratulations once again to our race winner, Tony Kanaan, his 13th of his career and first tonight. For Scott Goodyear, Jack Arute, Vince Welch, Brian Pettigo, I'm Marty Reed. Thanks so much for joining us here on the IndyCar Series. Till we meet again next week in Watkins Glen.